Dr. Amelia Wallace had always believed in the scientific method. Facts, data, reason. But when her deep-sea research vessel, Nautilus, descended into the depths of the Mediterranean, she encountered something that no textbook could explain. A strange, uncharted structure lay beneath the waves. It wasn't a natural formation. It looked artificial. The ocean silence swallowed her thoughts as she stared at the monitor. The shape on the screen was too symmetrical, too perfect to be a rock formation. The colors seemed wrong. Unnatural hues of blue and green, like something out of a dream. Amelia had been on hundreds of expeditions before, but this felt different. The crew murmured behind her, uncertainty filling the cabin. As the lead oceanographer, Amelia had made a career out of challenging the unexplained, but nothing had ever felt like this. "What is it?" one of her colleagues, Dan, asked in a whisper. Amelia didn't answer. She wasn't sure if she could. What she did know was this. The coordinates of the structure didn't match any known landmarks, ancient or modern. The sonar scans revealed an object at least 300 meters long, buried deep beneath the ocean floor, hidden in a trench that had been mapped countless times. It didn't belong there. She had to know what it was. Amelia felt her heart race. Something told her that this discovery wasn't just a scientific curiosity. This wasn't just another unknown shipwreck. This was something bigger, something dangerous. But why? And what had they uncovered? Amelia ordered the ship's submersible to get closer, ignoring the uneasy feeling creeping up her spine. As they approached, the shadowy outlines became clearer. Columns, stonework, and there, just visible through the murk of the deep, the unmistakable shape of what appeared to be a wall, a city wall. The thought hit her like a slap. Atlantis, the legend of the lost city, had always been a myth to her, a fable from ancient texts. But now, as she stared at the structure, a chilling question crept into her mind. What if it wasn't? What if Atlantis had been real all along, and they had just found it? The world's most enduring mystery lay at the bottom of the sea, and she, Dr. Amelia Wallace, had stumbled upon it. Amelia's heart raced as she pulled back from the screen, her breath shallow. She could hear the distant hum of the submersible's engines, but her thoughts drowned them out. She wasn't sure if she was ready for what came next. The city of Atlantis was not just a myth, it was history. And history, if uncovered, had a way of changing everything. Could they keep the discovery secret? Would the world believe them? And more unsettlingly, who else knew about this? The deeper Amelia thought about it, the more unnerving the whole situation became. The mysterious structure was only part of the story. As an oceanographer, she was no stranger to the secrets the sea kept buried. But this wasn't just an oceanic anomaly. It felt like an invitation to discover something that had been hidden for thousands of years. And as she prepared to send the submersible even further into the trench, the nagging thought at the back of her mind couldn't be ignored. What if some things were meant to stay buried? "Amelia, I think you need to take a look at this." Dan's voice crackled over the comms, breaking her from her trance. She nodded, wiping the sweat from her brow. They weren't alone down here. The feeling of being watched swept over her like an icy gust. As the submersible's cameras zoomed in on the stone structure, something caught Amelia's eye. A symbol carved into the side of one of the columns. An intricate design, almost like a crest, unlike any she had seen before. Could this be a clue, or just another trick of the light? Either way, she had to know. She made the decision in an instant. This wasn't just a discovery. This was the beginning of something much larger. The mystery of Atlantis wasn't just about ancient civilizations. It was about who or what had kept it hidden. With trembling hands, Amelia signaled the crew to begin pulling the submersible back to the surface. She had just uncovered a secret that could change everything, and the world would want answers. But was it ready for the truth? As the submersible ascended, the light from its underwater torches flickered. The walls of the city seemed to shift in the shadows, just for a moment, like they were alive. Amelia blinked, rubbing her eyes, but when she looked again, everything was still. Or at least, it seemed that way. "Did you see that?" she asked quietly. Dan's voice came back, distant and shaky. What was that?" "The lights just went out on the sonar." The Nautilus began its slow ascent, but Amelia could still feel the weight of the sea pressing in on her. Something was wrong. Something was out there, and it had been waiting for them. The Nautilus broke the surface just as the first rays of dawn touched the horizon. The ocean, once dark and mysterious, now seemed tranquil, almost deceptively so. Amelia stood on the deck, staring out at the endless expanse of blue. Her mind was far from the calm beauty before her. It was still down there, in the depths, with that hidden city. An enigma she couldn't ignore. The coordinates they had recorded were locked away for now. But Amelia's thoughts kept racing back to the strange symbol they'd spotted on the ruins. It had looked ancient, but somehow disturbingly familiar. Could it be a relic of a civilization even older than Atlantis? Her fingers grazed the cold steel railing of the ship, a reminder of how fragile humanity was in the face of the vast ocean. And then, like an electric shock, the thought hit her again. What if Atlantis had been intentionally hidden, erased from history? That afternoon, Amelia gathered her team in the research room. The excitement was palpable, but there was a tense undercurrent to the air. Everyone knew this was bigger than anything they'd ever worked on. The potential implications were endless. Could this be the discovery of a lifetime? Or the beginning of something much darker? Amelia leaned over the table, spreading the sonar maps and images of the underwater ruins. "We're going back," she announced firmly, her voice cutting through the chatter. "What? Back down there?" Dan's voice trembled, the memory of their eerie encounter still fresh. "Yes. We need more data. We need to understand what we're dealing with before we make this public," Amelia explained. "If Atlantis really is down there, we're not just looking at history. We're looking at a society that may have had technologies and knowledge we can't even comprehend." The others exchanged uneasy glances. There was no denying the excitement, but something about the discovery felt wrong. Dangerous even. Yet they couldn't walk away. The truth was too compelling. The decision was made. They would return the next day. As they descended once more into the Mediterranean depths, the eerie silence of the ocean pressed down on them, heavier than before. Amelia sat in the submersible, her hands gripping the controls with a mix of excitement and apprehension. The sonar pinged steadily as they approached the trench, but this time, something was different. The shadows of the city grew clearer, sharper, closer. It almost felt as if it were pulling them in, calling them to explore further. The crew members, who had been silent up until then, spoke in hushed tones. "I don't like this," Dan muttered, glancing over his shoulder, as if expecting something to rise from the darkness. Amelia's heart thudded in her chest. She couldn't explain why, but she felt a deep sense of foreboding. The walls of the city loomed, and in the shifting light of their submersible, every corner seemed to whisper secrets just beyond their grasp. The structure was even larger than it had first appeared. Columns stretched out, forming wide avenues that led to what could only be described as a central plaza. And there, at the heart of it all, was an enormous statue, a figure that seemed to gaze back at them with an unsettling intensity. Its features were worn, eroded by the centuries, but there was no mistaking the expression. The face was of a man, but not quite human. It was a mask, a symbol. Could this be a god they worshipped? One of the crew members, Rebecca, whispered, leaning in for a closer look at the distorted face on the statue. "I don't think this is about religion," Amelia said, her voice barely above a whisper. "This feels different." Amelia's eyes scanned the surrounding area. As the submersible crept closer to the statue, something caught her attention, a peculiar marking on one of the stone walls. Similar to the symbol they'd seen earlier, but more intricate, more defined. It wasn't just a symbol, it was a pattern, almost mathematical, like a code. She leaned forward, heart racing. The pattern seemed to pulse, almost as if they were alive, shifting in the dim light. The ancient civilization of Atlantis had long been considered a myth, but this was something else entirely. "This isn't just architecture," Amelia murmured, almost to herself. "This is intentional. Someone wanted us to find this." Dan's voice cut through her thoughts. "What are you saying? That Atlantis was built to be found?" Amelia didn't answer immediately. She was too focused on the stonework, tracing the symbols with her eyes. What if the city wasn't just hidden? It had been deliberately concealed, as though its existence was a secret worth protecting. As they moved further into the heart of the ruins, the eerie sense of being watched grew stronger. Every shadow seemed to twitch, every sound distorted. Amelia couldn't shake the feeling that something, or someone, was waiting for them to make the wrong move. Suddenly, a strange noise crackled through the submersible's communication system. A static-filled hiss, followed by what sounded like distant whispers. The hairs on the back of Amelia's neck stood up. "What the hell was that?" Rebecca asked, her voice tight with fear. "I don't know," Amelia replied, her heart pounding. "We need to pull back." But as she prepared to ascend, something strange happened. The sonar detected an object moving toward them from deeper within the trench, a large shape, too fast and too purposeful to be a marine creature. It was coming for them. Before she could react, the lights flickered, and the submersible jerked violently to the side. The shaking stopped, but the silence that followed was deafening. Amelia's breath was shallow as she gripped the controls, heart racing. "Amelia, you need to look at this!" Dan's voice trembled over the radio. Amelia turned to the sonar screen. The image was clear. A dark moving shadow was approaching them, its form unmistakably human. No, not human. A figure, draped in dark robes, gliding through the water. The city, it seemed, wasn't just a relic of the past. It had a protector, someone who had been waiting for centuries to keep the truth buried. The ocean was holding its breath. Amelia couldn't shake the feeling that they were no longer alone down there. The dark figure they had seen on the sonar, too distinct, too deliberate to be a trick of the light, had vanished as quickly as it had appeared. But the silence that followed it, that was even more unnerving. The Nautilus was anchored above the trench, its crew gathered below deck, but no one spoke of the figure. Not yet. It was too soon to make conclusions, too soon to even breathe a word about it to the world. No one would believe them anyway. Not yet. But Amelia couldn't stop thinking about the patterns she'd seen on the walls. That strange symbol that had pulsed like it was alive. The patterns on the columns, they weren't just decorations, they were something more. She could feel it in her bones. She could feel the city calling her. The next day, as the submersible descended once more into the trench, Amelia's unease had only deepened. The walls of the lost city appeared just as they had before, but now they seemed darker, as if the shadows clung to them more tightly, swallowing up the light. The sonar was acting up again. It flickered and blinked, as if it couldn't keep up with the underwater environment. The data was being corrupted. She could feel her grip tightening on the controls. "Amelia, look at this," Dan said over the comms, his voice strained. Amelia's stomach dropped as she looked at the sonar screen. A faint glow appeared on the edge of the structure, like something was emitting light, but no matter how she adjusted the sensors, the source remained unclear. She ordered the submersible to move toward it. As they drifted closer, the glow intensified, but it wasn't a light like any they had seen before. It wasn't a torch or a bioluminescent creature. It was something more refined, almost too perfect for the organic world. Is that a door? Rebecca's voice was barely a whisper. Amelia leaned in, squinting at the display. There, barely visible through the murk of the ocean, was a square shape etched into the stone. A perfect, smooth cutout. It was as though the stone had been carved and shaped by someone, with advanced tools. Amelia's mind raced. The civilization that built Atlantis had to have been advanced, far beyond what any historians had believed. They had engineered something, or someone, that could manipulate their world in ways no one had imagined. As they approached the door, the strange symbol appeared again, this time etched into the stone above it, glowing faintly in the dim light. The intricate patterns seemed to ripple and shift as they studied them. There were lines, curves, and symbols within symbols, something that looked almost like a map. But a map of what? And who had made it? Amelia's fingers hovered over the controls, hesitant. She had always trusted science, data, and observation. But right now, nothing about this situation made any sense. No known culture had ever produced anything like this. Maybe this is a message, Dan suggested, his voice tight with the excitement of discovery. A map to something deeper? But Amelia wasn't so sure. The more she thought about it, the more troubling the idea seemed. If this was a map, who had it been meant for? And why had it been hidden for so long? A shiver ran down her spine. There was a deliberate intention behind all of this. It wasn't just about knowledge. The city wasn't just a relic. It was a warning. As the submersible continued to hover above the door, Amelia's mind flashed to the ancient myths of Atlantis. She remembered the stories of the city's sudden disappearance, how Plato had described it as a powerful empire that had been swallowed by the sea in a single day and night of misfortune. What if the city hadn't been destroyed? What if it had been hidden away by those who built it? She pulled up the map again, tracing the symbols with her finger. There was something familiar about them, a recurring motif that seemed to match some of the ancient languages she had studied. Egyptian hieroglyphs, Mayan glyphs. It was as if Atlantis had drawn from multiple cultures, blending them into a single unified system. Amelia frowned. There were certain patterns that seemed to recur in all the major civilizations, themes of advanced knowledge, the idea of ancient gods, and the concept of a hidden, lost power. But what if those weren't just myths? What if they were echoes of a much older truth? She couldn't shake the thought that this discovery was tied to something far more universal, something beyond Atlantis. This city wasn't merely a relic of an ancient past, it was a key, and the key was unlocking something the world was not ready to understand. Amelia, the sonar is picking up something strange. Dan's voice crackled over the comms, his tone sounding more urgent than before. What now? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. We're not getting accurate readings, Dan replied. There's a distortion, like interference coming from deeper in the trench. And it's not just the sonar. The digital mapping tools, they're malfunctioning too. Amelia cursed under her breath. The technology they had spent millions of dollars on was failing. And worse yet, something felt off. She could sense it. There was a presence here. Something ancient, hidden in the dark. Something that didn't want them to know the truth. Prepare to ascend, Amelia ordered. But before she could give the command, something shifted in the depths. Something massive. A pulse of light, so intense it almost felt physical, radiated from the trench. It wasn't natural, wasn't from the sun. The sea seemed to hum with a strange energy, like the city itself was coming alive. The submersible rattled as if struck by an unseen force. Amelia's breath hitched. She slammed the control panel, trying to steady the vessel, but it was like the ocean was pushing back against them. The walls of Atlantis, their walls, seemed to reject them. Amelia's pulse raced as she felt the submersible lurch forward, pulled by some unseen current. The lights flickered, and then nothing. The screen went black. "Amelia? Amelia, are you there?" Dan's voice echoed through the empty comms. Amelia stared into the darkness. The image of the glowing symbols burned into her mind. Something was down there, something old, something powerful, and it wasn't done with them yet. The moment the submersible's lights flickered back to life, the tension in the air felt suffocating. Amelia's breath came in shallow gasps, her hands trembling over the controls as the deep sea silence enveloped her. They had only been gone for a few seconds, but it felt like an eternity. "Amelia? What's happening?" Dan's voice crackled through the comms, panic creeping into his tone. Amelia forced herself to calm down, though her heart was racing. "I'm not sure. The system just cut out. Everything went black." For a moment, all she could hear was the deep, rhythmic hum of the submersible's engines and the distant pressure of the ocean surrounding them. But then, something else. A whisper. It wasn't coming through the speakers. It wasn't something they could hear with their ears. But Amelia felt it. A distant, haunting call that vibrated through her very bones. Her skin prickled with the sense of something watching. Something ancient. Something that didn't want them here. "Get us out of here, Amelia," Dan urged, his voice strained. But his fear was palpable. She didn't need to be told twice. The pull of the ocean was strong, but the dread she felt now was stronger. Amelia hit the ascent button, her hands shaking as she guided the submersible upwards. But the submersible didn't move. It stuck. The tension in the cables was palpable, like the ocean itself was holding them in place. She tugged the controls again, harder, but it was no use. The vessel wouldn't budge. A low mechanical whine reverberated through the hull. Then the sonar blinked. For a split second, a familiar symbol appeared on the screen. The one that had haunted her since the first descent. The symbol was more than just an image. It was alive, pulsing with an otherworldly glow, like a warning shot fired across the abyss. And then the whispers returned. This time, they weren't in her mind. They were coming from the speakers, crackling through the system with eerie clarity. Words, broken, distorted fragments of a language Amelia couldn't understand. But the tone, the urgency in the sound was unmistakable. Someone or something was trying to communicate. "Amelia, do you hear that?" Rebecca asked, her voice tight. "Yeah," Amelia replied, her voice barely above a whisper. It's like a warning." "Warning? From who?" Dan sounded skeptical, but there was a nervous edge to his words now. "There's something wrong with this place. We should be out of here." Amelia's mind raced. The city, the symbols, the interference in their equipment, all of it had to be connected. But how? And why now? What had triggered this? "Stay calm," Amelia said, her voice steadying. "We need to figure out what's happening. I'm going to try something." With a deep breath, Amelia turned the submersible back toward the center of the ruins, where the glowing symbol had first appeared. The pulse of energy still lingered in the water, faint but undeniably present. The walls seemed to shimmer and shift in the strange ghostly glow. She slowly moved the submersible closer to the center of the plaza, the dark statue standing at its heart. The thing that had called to them, the thing that watched them from the depths. She couldn't let it go. Not yet. Not without answers. Amelia, we need to leave. This place, it's not safe. Dan's voice was trembling now, the fear evident. We've been down here too long. It's not natural. Before Amelia could respond, the sonar flashed again, a single pulse, stronger than before, followed by a sudden spike in the data. The ocean's hum grew louder in her ears, vibrating through the submersible, and then it happened. The lights flickered once more, and the image of the statue, the one that had been eerily lifelike before, shifted, moved. A chill crept through Amelia's body as she watched the screen. The statue's face was no longer still. It was as if the stone itself was alive, its eyes now piercing into hers, as if it had been waiting for them. And then the whispers turned into words, clearer this time, but still indecipherable. Suddenly, the submersible lurched. Amelia's hands gripped the controls tighter, trying to maintain control. But it was no use. The currents were pulling them in, toward the statue, toward the heart of Atlantis. The sonar pinged one last time, then died completely. Amelia, this is insane! Dan shouted. We're not supposed to be here. We're not supposed to find this. Amelia's mind was spinning, but the words of the whispers kept coming back to her. There was a message here. She was sure of it. The city was speaking to them, and whatever it was trying to say, it wasn't friendly. It was as if the city itself was alive, aware of their presence. The feeling that something ancient and powerful was watching them grew stronger. The sea was no longer a silent witness to their discovery. It had become an active participant in their fate. We have to get out, Amelia, Rebecca urged, her voice laced with terror. Now! Amelia's hands were still tight on the controls, but her mind was elsewhere. Her eyes scanned the walls of the city, looking for anything, any clue that could explain what was happening. That's when she saw it. There, carved into the stone wall just beside the statue, was a series of markings. Not the symbol they'd seen earlier. These were different, more angular, almost like an instructional code. Amelia's pulse quickened. There was something important about these markings. But before she could study them further, a sudden crash jolted the submersible, throwing her and the crew into disarray. The submersible systems sparked, and the communication systems cut out. The whispers returned, louder now, more insistent. Leave, now. The voice was clearer, more distinct, a chilling command. Amelia, we need to... Dan's voice cut off abruptly, replaced by a garbled sound. The ocean's pulse grew louder, the pressure of it surrounding them, constricting. Amelia's hand hovered over the ascent button, but the submersible was still stuck, as if the ocean had decided they weren't leaving yet. The whispers grew into a roar, a crescendo of ancient warning. And then, as if in response to their defiance, a force, powerful and undeniable, slammed into the submersible, sending it spinning through the water. The walls of Atlantis loomed larger as the lights flickered one last time, revealing something moving beneath the ruins. Something ancient. Something that was no longer hiding. The submersible shook violently, the entire crew thrown against their seats. For a split second, everything went dark, blackness swallowing them whole. Then the emergency lights flickered on, bathing the interior in an eerie red glow. The pressure of the ocean above them pressed down on the hull like an unseen hand, and the constant hum of the engines now felt like a distant, meaningless noise. Amelia's head spun, but she kept her grip on the controls. The whispers had stopped, but the tension hadn't. Amelia, what the hell was that? Dan's voice crackled over the comms, fear thick in his words. I don't know, Amelia replied, her voice steady but shaking with adrenaline. Her fingers hovered over the ascent button, but the submersible wasn't responding. Something's holding us down. It's like the ocean itself is alive. Her heart raced. She had heard the legends of Atlantis, the stories of its sudden, mysterious disappearance. But those were just stories. Myths. And yet, here she was, trapped in the depths of the Mediterranean, in the middle of what could be the greatest discovery in human history. One that was proving to be far more dangerous than she'd ever imagined. Amelia's eyes scanned the monitors, trying to make sense of the chaos. The submersible's systems were scrambled, their sonar and mapping equipment blanked out. The only thing that remained intact was the camera feed from the outside. The ruins of Atlantis were now fully visible, massive monolithic structures emerging from the dark ocean floor like jagged teeth. But something was different. Something had changed in the ruins while they had been tumbling. The statue, the one that had seemed so lifelike before, was gone. In its place, there was a massive opening in the stone, a deep, jagged crack running through the heart of the structure. The walls around it shimmered with a faint, unsettling glow, the same glow that had been coming from the mysterious symbols. A map, perhaps? Or a warning? Amelia couldn't be sure, but she knew one thing. Something had triggered this. Something had made the city react to their presence. "Amelia, what the hell is going on?" Dan's voice broke through her thoughts. "Is that a door? A crack? What is that thing?" Before she could answer, the submersible lurched again, this time pulling them toward the dark opening in the stone. The current was too strong, the force too much to fight. The submersible was being drawn in, against their will. With a final desperate push, Amelia tried to override the system, but the submersible was locked in. It was being pulled toward the crack in the ruins like it was being drawn by some invisible force. She glanced around the cabin. The crew was frozen, wide-eyed. There was no escaping this now. The glow from the opening intensified, casting long, eerie shadows across the crumbled stones of the lost city. The closer they got, the clearer it became. This was no mere ruin. It was an entrance, a passageway into something much older, much darker. As the submersible moved through the opening, the walls seemed to close in, narrowing on either side. The glow from the ruins was now blinding, almost overwhelming. The air inside the submersible felt thick with tension, like they were descending into the heart of the ocean itself. And then, as they entered the narrow chamber, the door shut behind them with a heavy, final thud. Inside the chamber, the sight that greeted them was more breathtaking than anything they could have imagined. The room was impossibly large, larger than any ancient vault or tomb they had ever encountered. Stone columns lined the walls, their surfaces carved with symbols that were unmistakably the same as the ones they had seen on the city's surface. But these were more intricate, more detailed, and even more alive. The glow intensified here, not from a single source, but from the walls themselves. The symbols flickered as though they were changing, shifting in front of their eyes. "This isn't just a city," Rebecca whispered, her voice trembling. "This is a temple, a sanctuary." Amelia's heart skipped a beat. She realized that what they were looking at wasn't a building. It was a purposeful structure. It was designed to protect something, to hide something so valuable, so powerful, that its creators had left nothing to chance. At the far end of the chamber, on a raised pedestal, stood an object. It was obscured by shadows, but it was massive, at least 6 feet tall, and radiated a kind of energy that Amelia couldn't quite place. The whispers returned. This time they were clearer, louder, filling the chamber with an overwhelming presence. "Do not approach," the voice warned. "You have come too far. Leave now or suffer the consequences." Amelia's blood ran cold. The warning was clear now. The city wasn't just a place. It was guarded, and the guardians didn't want them here. Before anyone could react, a low rumble echoed through the chamber, and the pedestal began to shift. The object on it moved, slowly, almost impossibly, as though something was awakening from within. And then, it spoke, in a voice that was neither human nor machine. something ancient, something unknowable. Why have you come? The voice was rich with age, layered with echoes of lost knowledge. Do you seek to unveil the truth, or are you here to destroy? Amelia froze. This was no myth, no legend. This was real. And whatever lay before them, it was older than anything humanity had ever known. Answer me, the voice demanded again. You have found the key. Do you understand its cost? For a moment, no one spoke. The gravity of the situation was sinking in. They weren't just uncovering a lost civilization. They were standing on the precipice of something far more dangerous. Amelia's mind raced. The symbols, the strange force pulling them in, the warnings. This was no mere discovery. This was a trap, and they had just walked right into it. The pedestal's glow intensified, nearly blinding them as it revealed the object in full. Amelia's breath caught in her throat. It wasn't a statue. It was an artifact, shaped like a large crystalline orb, pulsating with a strange, otherworldly energy. It was alive in some way, humming with a frequency that rattled her teeth. She knew, without a doubt, that this artifact had been the key to the city's hidden power. And now it was awake. We need to leave. Dan's voice was urgent, pleading. Now! But it was too late. The chamber began to tremble, and the walls shifted. The sound of the whispers crescendoed into a deafening roar. The city was reacting, and there was no going back now. The submersible trembled as the chamber seemed to shake around them. The artifact on the pedestal, still glowing with an intense otherworldly light, hummed louder, as though it were calling out to something or someone. The walls of Atlantis were closing in, shifting like the bones of an ancient beast, and the air inside the cabin felt thick with pressure. Amelia's heart pounded in her chest. The whispers were deafening now, vibrating through her very bones. We need to go! Dan's voice was raw with panic. Amelia, get us out of here. This place, this thing, it's not safe. But Amelia couldn't move. She was frozen, her eyes locked on the artifact. There was something undeniably powerful about it. Something magnetic. The hum of the artifact grew louder, the pitch rising until it felt like it was tearing through the air itself. And then, as if to answer her unspoken questions, the voice came again. You have awakened it, the ancient voice echoed, rich with age and malevolence. The city is alive once more, but you are too late to stop it. Amelia's mind raced. The whispers, the glowing symbols, the strange force pulling them into the ruins. All of it was becoming clear. Atlantis hadn't vanished. It had retreated. Hidden away not by the wrath of the ocean, but by its own creators. The civilization that built this city had foreseen disaster. Perhaps a war, perhaps a catastrophe. Whatever it was, Atlantis had been sealed away, preserved for a time when the world wasn't ready to handle its power. But now, they had triggered something. Something that had been waiting, biding its time. Amelia looked at Rebecca, who was gripping her seat in fear. Dan's face was pale, his knuckles white from holding onto the controls. Amelia, what is that thing? Rebecca whispered, her voice barely audible over the chaos. Why does it feel like it's calling to us? Amelia didn't answer immediately. Her mind was spinning. The artifact, the thing that had been locked away in this chamber for millennia, was no ordinary relic. It was alive, a vessel of power, its very essence embedded into the ruins. It was the key to everything. It's the heart of the city, Amelia finally said, her voice shaky but firm. The creators of Atlantis. They built it to preserve something, to keep it from being destroyed. And that something, Amelia realized with a sickening twist of her stomach, was not just knowledge, it was power. Power that had been hidden away for a reason. Suddenly the submersible lurched again, throwing them forward. The walls of the chamber seemed to close in, narrowing as though the very structure of the city was tightening around them. Amelia! Get us out now! Dan shouted, his voice rising in panic. But Amelia couldn't move. It was like the submersible was being held in place, trapped in the city's grip. "We can't leave," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. "The artifact is controlling us. It's too powerful." And then, as if to confirm her worst fears, the walls seemed to pulse with energy. The glow from the artifact intensified, becoming blinding, searing through the submersible's hull, illuminating the entire chamber in a blinding flash of white. Amelia's eyes widened as the pedestal beneath the artifact began to crack. The stone seemed to melt away, revealing something beneath the surface. At first, it looked like nothing, just blackness, a void. But then, the void seemed to swirl, and out of it emerged something else, a figure. The figure was tall, humanoid in shape, but impossibly elongated, as though its limbs had been stretched beyond natural proportions. Its skin was smooth, like polished stone, and its eyes, those eyes, were pools of swirling ancient darkness. The figure's mouth moved, though no words escaped its lips. The voice, however, spoke through their minds. "Why have you come?" it asked, its tone not just speaking, but thrumming in their heads. "Why have you awakened the city?" Amelia's stomach twisted in fear. This wasn't just a lost civilization. This was something far more terrifying. A guardian of Atlantis, perhaps, or a being from the civilization itself, its purpose entwined with the fate of the city. "Who are you?" Amelia asked, her voice barely audible, her body frozen in fear. "I am the Watcher," the figure replied, its voice echoing like a dark chant in the submersible. "I have waited millennia, and now you have released me." Amelia's breath caught in her throat. The Watcher, a name that rang with an unsettling familiarity. The stories of Atlantis spoke of protectors, of guardians who had sworn to keep the secrets of the city hidden. But this was something more. This being wasn't just a keeper of secrets. It was a prisoner, bound to the city until the time was right. And now that time had come. Amelia's mind raced. The Watcher's presence was oppressive, suffocating. The submersible felt small, insignificant, caught in the center of something ancient, something far beyond their understanding. "We didn't mean to wake it," Rebecca whispered, her voice trembling. "We didn't mean to." "No," the Watcher interrupted, its voice growing darker, colder. "You did not awaken me. You simply released me. And now you must choose. You have entered Atlantis, its domain. Will you leave with your lives, or will you remain here as part of its legacy?" A chilling silence followed the Watcher's words, and Amelia felt her pulse quicken. The choice, the consequences of it, were hanging in the balance. She couldn't tell whether the Watcher was threatening them or giving them an opportunity. Either way, they were trapped, and the longer they stayed, the more the city seemed to close in on them, drawing them deeper into its mysteries. The walls pulsed again, the glow from the artifact growing brighter. The submersible groaned in protest, its systems failing as if it too were being sucked into the vortex of Atlantis's power. "Amelia!" Dan shouted, fear lining his voice. "We don't have much time." Amelia didn't respond. Her mind was racing, the weight of the situation crashing down on her. Whatever Atlantis had been, whatever it had hidden, was now wide open, and she had no idea what consequences they would face for unearthing it. But she did know one thing. The Watcher's words were a warning that if they didn't act now, they might never leave. The artifact's glow blazed brighter. The walls seemed to pulse in rhythm with the figure's voice, and the submersible shuddered again, the lights flickering. The Watcher's face, made of the same stone as the city itself, leaned closer to the submersible. "Your fate is sealed," it whispered, its voice vibrating through their bones. But first, the figure raised one long, slender arm, and the chamber shifted, the ground beneath them beginning to crack. Amelia's eyes went wide as the submersible began to move, pulled by an unseen force, drawn deeper into the heart of Atlantis, into the darkness where no one had ever returned from. The submersible was no longer in control. Every switch, every lever seemed useless, as the ocean itself seemed to push them deeper into the heart of Atlantis. The walls of the chamber, once a place of ancient mystery, now felt like the bones of a great living creature, shifting with malevolent intent. The Watcher's form loomed ahead, its features distorted by the brilliant, pulsating glow of the artifact. The submersible groaned under the pressure, as if it too was being crushed by the weight of a millennia-old secret. Amelia's breath was shallow, her hands cold on the controls. They were no longer just explorers, they were intruders. And Atlantis had noticed them. "Amelia!" Dan's voice came through the comms, sharp with panic. "We need to get out of here now. This isn't just a city, it's alive. It's aware of us." Her mind raced as the submersible was drawn deeper, closer to the artifact at the center of the chamber. The Watcher's presence was suffocating, filling the cabin with an unsettling, oppressive silence. The light from the artifact grew blinding, each pulse of energy vibrating through the hull. "I know," Amelia replied, trying to steady her voice, "but we can't leave yet. Not until we understand what's happening here." Dan didn't respond. He didn't need to. He knew as well as she did that their chances of escape were slim, and that the longer they stayed, the more dangerous it became. The Watcher's eyes, dark and endless, focused on Amelia. It was a stare that seemed to pierce through her very soul, as if it could see all of her thoughts. "You should not have come," the Watcher's voice resonated in their minds, a sound that felt like ancient stones scraping against each other. "You seek knowledge, but knowledge comes at a cost. You have uncovered the heart of Atlantis, and now the heart beats for you." The submersible jolted again, a violent lurch that sent them all reeling. The walls around them seemed to contract, the once sturdy stone cracking and shifting as though the very foundation of Atlantis was responding to their presence. A series of low, rumbling noises echoed through the chamber, something deep, something alive. The Watcher's form flickered, its body shifting between shadow and substance, like a mirage caught between two worlds. "This city was built to protect," the Watcher intoned, its voice like a dark hymn. "But protection has become entrapment. Atlantis was not just a place, but a vessel, a containment for power, far beyond your comprehension. The creators, they knew what they buried here, and they buried it to save the world from itself." Amelia's chest tightened. The pieces were beginning to fall into place, but the revelation was more terrifying than she could have imagined. Atlantis hadn't just disappeared. It had hidden itself to contain something, and now it was awake. "What are you talking about?" Rebecca whispered, her voice shaking with fear. "What's been buried here? What power?" The Watcher's form solidified for a moment, its face full of ancient sorrow. "The power of creation itself," it said, "a force that could shape worlds, a force that, if unleashed, would consume all life, your world, my world, all worlds." Amelia felt the weight of the Watcher's words sink into her gut like a stone. The artifact, this thing they had awakened, it wasn't just a key to Atlantis' secrets. It was the key to an unimaginable power, one that had the potential to destroy everything. The Watcher's form twisted again, stretching toward the submersible, its eyes glowing with an eerie intensity. "You think you are the ones who control it. But no, the artifact has already chosen. It chooses those who come seeking it." Amelia's eyes darted to the artifact at the center of the room. It was pulsing now, its glow brighter, more intense, as if it was alive. The currents around them began to churn violently, as though the ocean itself was reacting to the power. They were caught in a tide, one that was pulling them deeper into the heart of Atlantis, where the truth of this ancient city was more dangerous than they had ever imagined. "Amelia!" Dan shouted, his voice desperate. We need to fight this. We need to destroy that thing before it destroys us. Amelia's mind raced. The submersible was being pulled into the artifact's gravitational pull, its systems failing one by one. She could feel the pressure building, the weight of the ocean pressing in from all sides. But there was no escape. Not now. Dan, I think it's too late, Amelia said, her voice barely above a whisper. This isn't just an artifact. It's a prison. A containment. Dan didn't understand. Neither did Rebecca. But Amelia knew. The Watcher had told them everything. Atlantis had been built to trap a power so great that it had to be hidden away, and they had just opened the door. I didn't sign up for this, Dan muttered, his voice shaking with fear. I thought we were just looking for a lost city. Not this. But it was too late for regret. They were already in too deep. The Watcher moved closer, its presence filling every inch of the submersible, its voice now a low growl in their minds. You cannot undo what has been done. The artifact chose you. You will be its vessels. The city's heartbeat will guide you, whether you accept it or not. You will become part of Atlantis. The submersible shook once more, and the lights flickered. For a moment, everything went black. Amelia's heart skipped a beat. She reached for the emergency lights, but her hand froze in midair. She could feel it, the change. The artifact was now connected to them, linked through some invisible thread, pulling on their very consciousness. It was speaking to her, not through sound, but through thought. Images flashed before her eyes, visions of a civilization long gone, of beings powerful beyond comprehension, of cities that floated among the stars, and worlds that had been destroyed by their own ambitions. Do you understand now? The Watcher's voice whispered in her mind. You are the new stewards of Atlantis, but can you control it? Or will it destroy you as it destroyed those before you? Amelia's breath caught. They weren't just trapped in the city, they had become a part of it. Suddenly, the chamber grew colder. The walls of the ruins seemed to pulse with an energy so intense that Amelia could feel it deep within her bones. The artifact's glow surged, its light now blinding, suffocating. The Watcher's voice echoed, louder now, its words filling their minds with an overwhelming presence. Your world is on the edge of destruction. You have opened the door to a force beyond your understanding. The question is no longer whether you will leave. The question is, will you survive the awakening? And then, as if to confirm its words, the submersible was yanked forward, pulled toward the heart of Atlantis, where the true power of the city awaited them. But this time, there was no turning back. The world around them was chaos. The submersible was no longer moving under its own power. It was pulled, yanked by an unseen force, deeper into the heart of Atlantis. The chamber they were in, now a cathedral of ancient power, was a maze of stone and metal, its walls alive with energy. The hum of the artifact had turned into a roar, filling the cabin, vibrating through Amelia's bones. It was as though the very soul of Atlantis was waking, and they were at its mercy. Amelia's pulse raced as she clutched the controls, her fingers slick with sweat. She could feel it, the presence of something beyond their understanding, something vast and ancient, pulling them toward it, guiding them. Amelia! Dan's voice cracked through the comms, his tone raw with terror. We've gone too far. I don't care about Atlantis anymore. I don't care what it's hiding. We need to get out. Now! But Amelia couldn't respond. She couldn't move. The artifact, that thing, was inside her mind now. She could feel its whispers, its commands. It was too powerful, too alive. The Watcher's form appeared again, its shadow flickering like a mirage, the glow of the artifact illuminating its features. It stood before them, its dark eyes full of sorrow and inevitability. You have reached the heart of Atlantis, it said, its voice a mixture of resignation and warning. And now you must face the consequences. Amelia stared at it, trying to steady her breath. What do you want from us? She asked, the words coming out of her mouth like a plea, though she knew it was futile. This wasn't about want. This was about fate. The Watcher's gaze softened, just for a moment, before it spoke again. You have become part of it now. The city, the artifact, the power, it has chosen you. You are its vessels. You will carry its legacy with you, whether you wish to or not. Rebecca gasped behind her, her voice cracking. Legacy? We didn't choose this. We didn't come here for this. But the Watcher remained silent, its form flickering again, as the ground beneath the submersible seemed to pulse, vibrating with a strange energy. Amelia's mind reeled. She could feel the power of the artifact pressing in on her thoughts, its presence overwhelming, suffocating. She could feel the pulse of the city, its heartbeat, alive and thumping in the very walls around them. Are we supposed to stop it? Amelia asked, her voice barely a whisper. Can we stop what we've unleashed? The Watcher's gaze hardened. You cannot stop what has already begun. The power of Atlantis has been released. Its purpose will unfold in time, but you will bear witness to it. You will carry its burden. Amelia closed her eyes, fighting to keep her composure. The truth was too much to bear. The artifact, this living, breathing thing, was not just an ancient relic. It was the core of Atlantis, its energy source, its heartbeat. And by uncovering it, by releasing it, they had awakened something that was never meant to be disturbed. The city of Atlantis had chosen them, chosen her. She was no longer just an explorer. She was now bound to Atlantis's fate. You're asking us to accept this? Dan's voice cut through her thoughts, full of disbelief. To accept this burden? The Watcher's dark eyes bored into him. You have no choice. Atlantis will not be denied. Its awakening is inevitable. The power that sleeps within the city will shape the world once again. Amelia felt the weight of those words sink in. They had not just stumbled upon a forgotten civilization. They had awakened a force capable of changing everything, of reshaping the future, perhaps even the fabric of reality itself. The cost was unimaginable, but as the Watcher spoke, Amelia realized something else. She wasn't just a passive observer in this story anymore. The Watcher had called her a vessel, and if she was to survive this, if they were to escape, they would have to find a way to control what they had unleashed, or die trying. Suddenly, the submersible lurched violently, throwing Amelia and her team into the harnesses. The hum of the artifact intensified, growing into a full-blown roar, as if the very walls of Atlantis were shaking under the weight of the power now coursing through them. We can't hold on much longer, Rebecca shouted, her voice filled with panic. We need to get out of here before this place collapses. Amelia gritted her teeth, fighting to regain control. The city, Atlantis, was not just alive. It was responding to the artifact. The very ground beneath them was cracking, the ocean itself shifting, as though it were being drawn into the energy of the artifact. We have to do something, Amelia said, her voice firm, her hands steady on the controls. We have to stop this from destroying everything. The Watcher's form flickered again, its eyes narrowing with a strange intensity. You cannot control what has already been set into motion, it said, its voice colder now. Atlantis was never meant to be controlled. It will reshape the world in its own image. But Amelia wasn't about to give up. She had come too far. And despite everything, despite the overwhelming odds, there was one thing she knew for sure. She wasn't going to let Atlantis, whatever it was, whatever it had been, destroy everything. We'll figure it out, she muttered, more to herself than to the others. We have to. And then, just as the submersible shuddered violently once more, something inside Amelia clicked. She could feel it. The artifact was pulling on her, guiding her, as if it wanted her to understand something. She closed her eyes for a moment, focusing on the pulse, the rhythm of the city, and then, just like that, the connection deepened. She knew. The artifact was not just a source of power, it was a conduit, a gateway. It could be controlled, but only if they understood its true purpose. The chamber grew brighter, the light from the artifact blinding now, and for a fleeting moment, Amelia felt an overwhelming sense of choice. She could feel the power surging, flowing through her very veins. She could stop it. She could shut it down if she acted now, but doing so would come with a cost. The Watcher's voice echoed in her mind. If you destroy the artifact, if you sever the connection, you will destroy Atlantis as well. Its legacy will vanish. But if you let it continue, it will reshape the world. Your world. What will you choose? Amelia's hand hovered over the control panel, the weight of the decision settling on her shoulders like 1,000 tons. Destroy the artifact. Destroy Atlantis. And prevent whatever power it had from consuming everything. Or let it run its course and risk the destruction of the world as they knew it. Her heart pounded. She knew that whatever she chose, there would be no going back. With a final, breathless decision, Amelia pressed a button, her heart pounding in her chest, as the artifact's hum began to change. The walls shook violently, and the submersible was pulled toward the heart of the city. And then, in the space between seconds, everything went black.